You know, it's funny when I introduced this class, and I wrote a blog post about it, and many of you guys may have seen the blog post. One of the things that always kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes me laugh or giggle or smirk, I guess is maybe a better word. You know, when somebody, like, you put out there somebody's the #1 agent in the country, and again, we're going to introduce Ben here in a second. It's based on the Wall Street Journal and Real Trends, and every year they get together, and agents around the country are able to submit and say, here's how many transactions I did this year, or how much, you know, volume I did in transactions, and there's a variety of different categories they have. But for the last couple of years, and definitely this last year, 2012, Ben Caballero, who's our guest here, and I'll introduce him in a second, was #1 for the number of transaction sides and the number of transaction volume. And Ben is the CEO of HomesUSA.com, and you can find him on Twitter at @BCaballero if you want to reach out and talk to him on Twitter. So, Ben, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Bob. Thanks for having me, and I want to thank everyone that's online for attending. I'll try to make it worth everyone's while.
All right. Well, you're on the spot because I got nothing, man. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. So #1, I mean, you literally in 2012 sold more houses than anyone in the country in terms of the number of homes that went under sale as a result of you having represented either the buyer or the seller. And you did, and okay, so for me, Ben, and I would have to imagine for most of the folks on the call, like, these numbers are nuts. I just, when I look at them, and you know, so you did 2,267 sides in 2012, and somebody broke it down, I think, in the blog post and was like, oh my goodness, that's like, I don't know if it was 4 or 6 sides every single day. I think it's 6 sides every day for 365 days a year. I guess for me, what becomes even more befuddling is the second agent in the country did only 661. So my first question is, like, is it really possible that you're 250% better than the second agent in the country? Or maybe give a little bit of context for everybody on the call about how in the heck you were able to do like this many more than the next person.
Well, let me tell you, I put my pants on the same way as anybody else, one leg at a time.
There must be some people out there that don't believe that, by the way, but okay, go ahead.
I developed a system some time ago that is not your typical traditional real estate operation. I have a B2B business, business to business. I don't work with individuals. I work with companies. I work with builders, and my system is a number of specialized services that in combination makes them money. We are able through, well, we have case studies that have shown time after time that we're able to reduce their inventories days on market somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 days. I recently did a study for one of my major national accounts that showed that their average days on market were 87 days for that customer. And we took the same subdivisions that builder was in and looked at their competition, and they had 127 days average average days on market for their inventory. That worked out in that particular builder's case to $1,443 based on their average sales price and based on a 6% carry, which is very low. And that's just one of the things that we do. We save them time. You know, my company's motto is we save you time and money. And if I can't save someone time and money, then I have a hard time justifying what we do.
Okay, so it sounds like you're kind of positioned yourself into a niche. Am I right?
Absolutely. You
okay.
know, I learned in first grade not to pick on guys bigger than me. Or not to get into fights with them anyway. I am not going to get into the traditional business with people that have been in it so long and have hundreds, if not thousands, of agents and big budgets. That's that's not me. And another thing that's not me is I'm not comfortable in that type of environment. So what I do is I look for something, an area that's being underserved or not served, and see if there's a way for me to serve that. And then when I identify that, I do it. I try to do it very well. And that's what I've done with home builders. I was a home builder once, and
Okay.
for about 18 years, matter of fact. And in looking at the business from that perspective, and then as from a realtor perspective, it was pretty obvious to me that builders really needed something that they were not getting. And so I went about to developing this system. I started playing around with it without a system probably about 15, 18 years ago, and I was doing listings with getting faxes, and we were getting phone calls, and that was before the days of even email, but later we were getting email requests, and we had to keep binders of requests, and it was just so disorganized or difficult to keep organized. And at that point I figured, with the advent of the internet and the regional MLSs, and that it was just a better way, and so I began developing this system in '06 and finally launched it in late '07, and we've been refining it ever since. And
okay, so a little bit later in the call, and I kind of made a reference to this in my blog post, we're going to talk, we'll give everybody the opportunity, if you're interested in what Ben's doing from his business, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more here in a little bit, but if you're interested in the system that he uses to work with builders, I'm going to give you guys a chance to let Ben know, essentially. And so it sounds like, based on kind of our conversations, you are looking at maybe partnering with some folks out there to bring this to a little bit wider audience, because right now you're only working, and those 2,267 deals basically came out of kind of 2 greater metro markets. Is that right?
Well, we are in actually 4 Texas markets: Austin,
okay.
San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, and then Houston.
Okay.
And we are definitely looking to expand into other markets, and we need brokers in those markets that have relationships with builders to offer this service. And
okay, so we'll get to that in a minute, because I'm really interested in, like, what does it traditionally look like for a builder out there, and then what maybe are you guys bringing that's a little bit different? So we'll come back to that here in a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning, because I think anybody right now, or at least if it was me, and I'm sitting on this call and I'm going, okay, I'm listening to this guy. He did 2,267 sides. I got a lot of questions about that, and we'll kind of get into how you even manage something like that here in a minute. But most of the folks on the call, we didn't even do 100 deals this year, right? And we're happy we maybe did 15 or 20 or something like that. But let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Give me a little bit of perspective on where you came from. So you got started in the business at 21. I won't have you kind of tell us how long you've been in the business now, right? Because I guessed, I think 25 years, and you laughed at me and said, like, thanks, appreciate it. But let's go back to the beginning. So you're 21, you kind of get into the business. Do you come in as a traditional agent?
No, I didn't. I began as an apartment rental service, and I was really the second one that started in this market. And later I transitioned into home building, and then later into the guaranteed sale business that we talked about, and then simultaneously with that I began morphing into what we're doing today. So that's I've never really had a lot of agents, never really worked for a large brokerage company. I've always tried to do something that I felt, as I said, was not going to cause me to have to compete with the big guys.
So was there ever a time when you kind of looked at yourself as a traditional agent? I mean, where you kind of did the traditional things, you went out and you showed buyers houses, or you negotiated contracts, or were you always kind of maybe on the fringe of doing those things?
Well, when I had the guaranteed sale program, I did do quite a bit of volume in that, but it was more of a captive type business. So really never really was in the business of recruiting agents and managing agents and the retail type end.
Okay, but from the perspective of being an agent, I mean, you very much did that, right, with the guaranteed sale program. Like you were out there walking into sellers' homes and doing kind of the traditional things that somebody sitting on the call is
oh yes,
doing
we learned how to advise them on staging and that sort of thing. Preparing their home for sale is a big part of it, and of course we had to market their homes and help them get them sold.
So let's fast forward now. So your business today is based on the idea of, like you called it, a B2B thing, where you're going out and you're meeting with companies or builders, right?
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about how did you get started in that niche? So is it strictly because you were a builder that you had contacts in there, or how did you get started in this?
Well, from the guaranteed sale business, I had developed some builder relationships, and as part of that, I started soliciting their MLS business. And as I say, we found very quickly that it was a pretty messy way that it was being handled, and we weren't any better. And but at that point, I determined there was a better way and set about doing that. So.
Okay, so and this for you, this was like 7 years ago, right?
Yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit, and there's probably some folks on the call that don't kind of understand how this works or how you get in with builders or how certain agents are able to list homes for a builder. Give me kind of a recap or maybe a high-level look at what that messy way that builders go about getting their inventory into the MLS, like what does that look like for a traditional builder?
Well, for instance, I called on a builder one time, and I said, well, I was talking to a sales counselor. I said, so they were listing their homes with an agent. I said, so how do you handle your request? How does the agent take care of the updating your listings and that sort of thing? And they said, well, once a month we receive a fax with what's in MLS and the price, and then we cross out the ones that are sold, and we change the prices, and then we add anything that we want to add. I said, once a month? Yes. Well, our average, we attack everything that comes into us in an average of 13 minutes. Okay, we start processing in 13 minutes. And I can't imagine running your inventory on a monthly update. I mean, that's just, I can't imagine why somebody would even allow that. And so that's just an example of what I call, I don't know if you want to call it sloppiness or I don't know, but that's just not a way to do business. You're going to wind up with homes that are for sale that are not at MLS. You're going to wind up with some homes that are sold but still showing active in MLS, and none of which is good.
So it's like if you were literally to walk into a builder's relationship in Seattle, let's say, I mean, do you think it's running similar to what it was kind of 6 or 7 years ago when you were getting in and finding this niche? Like, are there still places where this is the norm?
A lot of it is. Builders have changed. A lot of them have created their own real estate entities, and they are our biggest competition at the moment. But before I walk into a builder's office, I do a lot of research. I see what they've done for the last several years, see what their days on market has been. We look at their listings, see if they are have good remarks, what kind of photos they have. We compare their current listings to what they have on their website, and amazingly, I have yet to do an analysis of a builder where their homes on their website and their homes in MLS are the same or have the same prices. And so when I start showing them these sorts of things, they realize what kind of a problem they really have. And it's if I can get in front of them with that type of information, it's pretty much downhill from there and getting them on board.
What is the process like of getting in front of a builder? I mean, is it
Very
literally just a
difficult.
matter of picking the phone up and calling and saying, hey, I'd like to set a meeting with you, or how
It's
does
very
that work?
difficult. It's very difficult. That's the biggest uh, thing that we have to overcome, because there's perception in a lot of the minds of builders that MLS is MLS. A listing is a listing. So much, I mean, sort of like a rose is a rose, but as I've just illustrated to you, it is not. There's in our market, there's about 300 different fields in an MLS listing, and that's 300 ways to make a mistake. And so getting that idea across to them is because they're first of all, they're in the building business and they don't understand our business, and so there's a tendency for them to say, I got it handled. I have somebody taking care of it. My sister-in-law is an agent. She's taking care of it. My wife is, my daughter, whatever, and they just cross it off. They are blind or deaf, blind and deaf to anything, and particularly if they have their own in-house system, then it's getting personal then, okay? I guess it's personal if their wife is doing it too.
Sure.
So you have to walk a really fine line. I made the mistake one time walking into a major builder, and I said, if you hire me, you can fire 2 of these people that are doing this. And he looked at me like, oh my God, I can't fire my people,
Right.
So that's just, I thought I learned a lesson that day.
Is there, so because to me it would seem like a big builder, like they would have this stuff kind of figured out, or is it easier walking into a large builder because they realize things like, I mean, if I can get, $500 in holding costs reduced for every one of my properties, like that adds up. Is it easier to convince those large builders than it is maybe the smaller guys that aren't doing as much volume?
Well, it's pretty much the same. I mean, builders, it's if you're building 30 homes a year, your operation scaled to where you're probably just as busy as a guy that's building 300 homes a year, and
Okay.
so I don't really find it's any easier one way or the other. The thing that really makes it go is if you have a relationship, know somebody in the business, if you're respected in your industry or in your market, or both would certainly help. And so we pretty much dominate our market here. We're doing probably 30% of all the new home sales that are in MLS, and of course we have a record to point to and that sort of thing, and so it's become easier. We recruited a couple of builders last week, and we're we've overcome a lot of the problems of getting started. So
Let's talk for a second about the system. So you kind of explained in the past, or a little bit of how it would work. Tell me, like, what are some of the things that maybe you've automated, or some of the things that you've done that you can point to a builder and say, look, here's what we do that's going to make you more efficient?
well, we have about 40 things that we do, and there is no single one that I can say, if we do this, then that's the key, the secret to successfully reducing your days on market. We have to do a lot of things very well, and it's humanly impossible to do so many things very well on a consistent basis, unless even if you had a large staff, because manually it's just, like I say, there's 300 fields in each listing, and if you have 500 listings, I mean, you're talking about just a tremendous, mind-boggling situation. So our system is internet-based, and it has validations and limitations on people making mistakes. And on top of that, then we we send them out reports letting them know the status of everything. So if there is something they is misentered in some way, like they changed the price and didn't enter it in our system, then they can do that. They can correct that. But essentially, the system tells them when it's time to order photos, and of course, we do provide professional photography for them. It tells them when it's time to change the status, the construction stage from incomplete to complete. Tells them when they submit a pending listing when it's time to submit the sale, that tell people that it's sold. We have profiles that for each community and for each plan, so that whenever they want to initiate a request for a new listing, they just go in and select the plan in the community, and it populates the entire request with the exception of the price and the legal description and the address, and maybe a couple other fields that they can preview. So it saves them time, and they one of the things that I was told recently by the division president and vice president of sales and marketing, that they appreciated most of our system, was that they were relieved of the day-to-day management of the information and their information, and being certain that it's in MLS properly. They say that was a tremendous relief for them. They don't have to have anybody doing that, because we essentially do that. We have a queue of every listing and every active and pending listing that I have someone, in spite of all this automation that I'm telling you about, this list has gone through every day, and it's listed by market, by builder, by community. And so when we go down that list, we can tell if when we call a sales counselor in that particular subdivision, what they have, what the price is, whether it's construction stage, whether they've ordered photos, how many days have been on market. We have the whole picture right there, and we can go right down the line on everything they have, and we can ask them, do you have anything else that you need to have in MLS? Are these listings current? Status of these listings current? And so in spite of all these other, we send out twice weekly reminders on things that they need to do. And so this list that I'm telling you about is kind of a catch-all or safety net for anything that needs to be done that hasn't been addressed through either voluntarily or as a result of the notices. I hope I made that clear. I might have rambled a little bit.
That's all right. So, I mean, but you literally could have eliminated 2 jobs in that guy's office. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the stuff that somebody in that office is responsible for on a day-to-day basis can kind of be put into a process that's a little bit easier to wrap your arms around.
Yes, it's and you know, the problem that builders have even with our system is that it is a secondary issue for them. Their main business is building homes. So what we strive to do is to get the information and as efficiently from them as possible, and make it easy for them to work with us.
Well, I mean, their main business is definitely building homes, but they can't continue to do that unless they sell them, right?
Right.
And that's where you guys come in. Well, what does it look like? What does the actual sale of the home look like, and how much of that process are you guys involved in? Like, will the builder then still have their own site agents that sit there and potentially capture like the buyer's side of that business, or how does that work, and do you guys ever factor or play into that?
Occasionally. We have a lead capture and forwarding system, so the leads that we receive on these listings from the various real estate sites,
right,
are automatically, electronically, immediately forwarded to the builder. If we receive an email about one of the listings, our system has a way to forward that to the builder. If we receive a phone call, if you call our 888 number, it's going to ask you for the MLS number, which is the first thing that's going to be in the property description. You enter that MLS number, and our system forwards that phone call to the sales counselor. And so we don't, that's part of our service. We're not trying to list the homes. You know, we have agents, or there are agents that will list a home for nothing, just for the opportunity to get the leads. Well, that's not the way that we work. And we give the builder the benefit of those leads, and that's another thing they really like about what we do.
And so the builders you're working with, all of those builders kind of have their own sales teams in place.
Yes,
where they're handling those leads.
To answer your question, I'm sorry, I failed to do that. In Texas, their builders have their own salespeople. They do not have agents, licensed agents, manning their sales centers.
Got it. Okay, so since you said you avoided that last question, I'm going to circle back on another one, because I get that it's hard to get in front of a builder. Give me something. Give me one little nugget. Like, how do you do it? Even though it's hard, you do it. Like, do you lead with the fact that you can save them money? Are you leading with the fact that you can eliminate 2 people? Like, how do you get in front of that guy? Is it maybe it's based on the fact that you've just got a lot of experience and now have made a name for yourself. So if that's the case, at some point you didn't have that. Like, how did you get in front of those first couple of builders maybe?
Well, the first couple I had relationships with through previous business contacts. But then there are other builders that I've chased literally for years. You know, I've constantly persevered and pursued them until they listened to me. And you just have to, as in any other business or any other profession or any other activity, to be successful, you cannot give up the first time. You have to persevere. And of course, you have to do it in such a way that you're not making a big pest of yourself. And so, you know, I do it by sending them information about not only our company, but about their company and how they are doing and how their competition is doing, and sometimes that gets their attention.
So the ability to say, hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but your competition is, you know, 15 days less on market, which means they're holding costs. I mean, you're doing stuff like that, kind of the analysis.
Yes, yes.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, if I'm sitting here listening to you now, I'm thinking, okay, this guy showed up on the list as like the #1 agent, because there's another side of that list that's like teams, right? But you're on the individual agent side. Certainly you have a team of some sort around you. Talk for a second about maybe the support staff that you've had to put in place to manage this volume.
Well, we have a total of 9 people besides myself, and half of those people are well, 4 of them are in the IT department. They do all of the maintenance and improvements on the system. Then the other half are administrative people. They man the system, and I have a operations lady that she's the boss around here. She runs everything, and I couldn't operate as well as I do without her. And I have one licensed agent that handles the pre-owned properties, and which she was in the new home business at one time and very successful, and she does a really good job in what she does. So that's it. That's my staff.
Wow. So were these people that you brought with you kind of in the transition to going into this B2B business, or are these people that you've hired since then?
Well, most of them, you know, things change. My operations lady's been with me from the very beginning, and I had the other people have been with me various lengths of time, but we have a very peaceful office. There's no drama. We all work as a team. We all rely on each other. It's a very, very comfortable and very pleasant operation that we have at this time. And customer service, I think, is important, and without the type of operation that we have, we could not provide the customer the level of customer service that we have. And I know that it's good because we sent out a survey and had a very, very high number of satisfaction on customer service level.
What's the operations manager's name?
That's Dinah Drake.
Dinah Drake. We should give her a little bit of love. I've had we talked about it earlier, the good fortune, or I'm thankful that over the years I've been able to sit down and talk with guys just like you that are doing literally more deals than I ever thought possible. And some of them have teams, but almost to a person, when you sit down with somebody like that, they will give credit to somebody like Dinah, right, and say that this was literally like a fundamental hire in my business. So for the teams, it's like their team coordinator, or your assistant. Or what traits would you look for in somebody like that that's really just going to keep things together and keep things operating, which is essentially what Dinah does, right?
Right. Loyalty, I think, is probably right up there, and of course ability is a prerequisite. But loyalty, Dinah works longer hours than anyone in the company. She's here typically between 7 and 7:30 every day, and she doesn't leave till 5 or 5:30. She is available on weekends. We almost think alike. If she comes to me with an issue, it's something I've already been thinking about, and vice versa. So, she's. I could not think as broadly and on future issues and objectives if I did not have Dinah. So,
if you walked away from your business right now, like is that possible, or are you an integral cog in the day-to-day operations of the business?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Well, I mean, obviously things aren't going to run, as smoothly as they would without you. But like, is that possible?
Pretty much. I mean, Dinah could do a pretty good job, I'm sure. There's matters of policy that I get involved in, and I don't want to bore your listeners with that sort of thing. But our policy relates primarily to providing a good service for our customers, and which we're really.
Sounds like you're doing. Okay, so balance. I actually had this slide. I was going to ask you a question about kind of your life-work balance. Well, before I ask that question, a bunch of people have been kind of popping in here and asking questions, and one of the main questions seems to be, how do you get paid? So you're not working the buyer's sides of these things. Doesn't sound like very often. That stuff's all going to the builders. How are you getting paid? Is it like a per listing basis? So I guess the question is that how do you find balance between those more traditional types of commissions or is it just like a per listing sort of a thing, or how do you?
Yes, we charge the builder on a per listing based on their volume. Based on the services, they don't want us to provide the photography, then that changes it. But primarily on their volume, their price range, and so forth.
Do you guys do anything with like the leads that you generate, or is that just an additional? I mean, if a listing generated 1 lead and another one generated 50 leads, like is that the same price?
Yes, the leads are, let's say, whether they're 1 or 50. They're going to go to the builder anyway, and of course the potential for the leads is somewhat controlled by the product that we don't have any control over. The builder's controlling that. So if they come up with a great product at a great price, it's going to develop more leads than one that doesn't. The one that doesn't have a great price or a desirable location. So that's built to the builder's credit, and we let them benefit from that.
Got it. Do you have a life outside of this of work? Is there the ability to find work-life balance when you're?
Well, thanks to Dinah, I do. I don't keep as long hours as I used to, but I do. I do keep a very active office schedule, and usually on weekends, I usually catch up on things that I can't do, like writing down my ideas, writing new programs, and just things that I have no pressure interruption on the weekends. I have a nice home that I enjoy, and I can do whatever I want to do whenever I want to. I'm content, and so I don't really have a lot of the pressures that you might think someone with this kind of volume has. And I like to shoot hoops, and I watch sports, and so that's about it. I have one son that helps me a lot. I didn't mention him, but his name is Prescott, and he is invaluable, and has got my bacon out of the fire a few times when I needed his help. And so
he works with you in the business?
No, he has his own e-commerce business, and he very successful. And in spite of his the time requirements in his business, he's always been very generous with me. And I guess it helped whenever I bought him that first Commodore computer when he was like 8 years old.
Do you have somebody in your life, and maybe it's Prescott, do you have somebody that when you have an idea or something you're trying to flush out that you go to kind of bounce that idea off of, or to really help flush an idea out?
Yes, Will Prescott would be on the top of that list, and Dinah, and then some of the builders I have. I'll take builders to lunch very often and just run things by them, get their reaction, and we're developing some new products, some consumer type products that are going to change the dynamics of our company, and we are doing focus groups, and so we have approached from different angles on how we I guess
develop ideas.
Yeah, develop ideas.
So okay, so when I put this blog post out here and say, hey, we're going to have this guy did 2,267. Somebody in your market came in and said, oh, well, all he does is they just take builders' listings and they place them into the MLS, and anybody could do this. And I always chuckle at a comment like this because obviously not anyone can do this. And even if anybody could do it, like we showed earlier, you're doing it like 250% better than anybody else is. So if anybody else could do it, they're not doing it quite as well, which would lead me to believe that there must be something to this system that you have, right? I mean, you guys are able to do this at a higher volume, obviously, than anybody else out there has seemed to figure out how to do. So the question becomes, can anyone use this system? We kind of alluded to this earlier, but maybe talk for a second about the potential for somebody else to get their hands on what you're doing or be able to learn from what you're doing and incorporate something like this into their own market.
Well, it would be very, very easy for someone to do that, and we are certainly open to talking to people in other markets about that. Essentially, all anyone would need to do is to establish relationships with builders. If they have established relationships, that's great. If they're companies that have new home divisions, that it might be a natural, or would be a natural, I think. And essentially, we would do all the work. Our system would do all the work. We would get the builder into our system, get their communities and their plans into our system. We would do the training of their personnel to teach them how to enter the information into our system as far as their requests, and then we would manage the whole process. Their listings on the in MLS and the internet, and we would send them the billing. We would do the collections, and when I say send them, we would send the builders. We would bill the builders, and we would collect the money from the builders, and we would send our partner in these various markets a check. So it would not require any additional overhead or investment in equipment or software or anything. It'd really be a very, very easy thing to get into, and for anyone in other parts of the country.
Oh, you make it sound too good to be true, Mr. Caballero.
Well, we have the capacity to do. I've estimated easily we could do 10,000 units a year in our current setup.
And I would imagine that if it got to the point where you needed 20, you would be able to scale to that rather easily.
Oh yeah, yes,
right?
it's scalability is not an issue. We could that's you just add another server or two and increase your bandwidth and maybe add a person or two and you're done.
But not everybody's cut out for this. Like, if I'm sitting here listening on this call, I'm thinking, this might be for me. I got one builder buddy who, he does 15 listings with me a year. Like, what does somebody need to have? Like, what is that quintessential element in somebody's character, maybe, where they need to have in order to make this successful? Is it just they got to be a bulldog, or like, what is it about somebody that's going to let them succeed with this?
Well, with our system, really, the only thing that is necessary is to have good relationships with the building industry, and that could be someone that was in the building business. It could be an agent that has sold for a builder, and of course, good character is essential, but it just gets back to relationships and industry knowledge. The nitty-gritty we have solved. The day-to-day activity, all the management of the data has been solved.
All right, so if you guys are interested in this, when you close down the webinar today, there's a little question in there that says, are you interested in learning more about Ben's system? If you hit yes on there, I'm going to give Ben your email addresses, and he'll reach out and contact you if you're interested in potentially speaking with him about bringing something like this to your market. Okay, let's change gears a little bit. So we talked about your business. We've talked about how you're able to get all these listings, the builder relationships that you've built over the years. Let's change gears for a second and talk a little bit about associations. And so I asked you earlier, you are a member of the National Association of Realtors, and you're also the president, and I believe one of the guys that started, right, this National Association of Real Estate Professionals.
Yes.
Okay, so NAREP.net, National Association of Real Estate Professionals. Talk for me for a second about what this is all about.
Well, for several years, I've heard a lot of grumbling about the publishers, the Zillows and Trulias and Realtor.com, et cetera. And all due respect, I know that ActiveRain is now part of the Trulia entity, or the.
That's right. We talked about that yesterday.
But in all due respect, the Zillows of the world do not operate under any real estate licensing law. They have no code of ethics that they are responsible to. They don't follow any MLS rules. And so what they're doing is a lot of things that we as brokers and agents cannot do, that we're prohibited from doing. We would lose our membership in the National Association of Realtors, and so I believe, and a lot of people believe, that this is contrary to the interests of our industry. And so what we did is we formed NAREP in order to provide a place for people to let it be known that they either agree or disagree with what's going on. And we also created a Bill of Rights that we feel would correct what we perceive as abuses in the online publisher business, these websites, Zillow, et cetera. And then further, we looked at the listing agreement that is published by the various states, these various state associations of realtors. Looked at California, Florida, Texas, Illinois, and a number of others, and there was nothing in those listing agreements that we are using that authorizes us as brokers to comply with the terms of use of these websites. Specifically, if you look at the terms of use, you will find that they require granting of a irrevocable, perpetual, worldwide license to use the data in any way they want. They can sub-license it, they can manipulate it, modify it, whatever. But we don't have the authority to grant that license. And so the listing agreement addendum will allow a broker to protect themselves by having their seller sign that. And so that's essentially what NAREP is doing currently, and we would appreciate anyone who has any interest in that to visit our website. It's narep.net, and we'd be happy to discuss and work with you.
So the listing agreement addendum, as I was kind of looking through this stuff, to me, like, that's just a good thing to have in there, right? I mean, because like you mentioned in the site as I was reading through, you don't have the ability to essentially give the Trulias and the Zillows of the world the rights that you're giving them.
That's correct.
Right? I mean,
we have no authorization to grant such licenses.
In your listing agreement with the seller, it doesn't say something to the effect of, you give me the right to market this property irrevocably, essentially.
Right. It says that we can put it on the internet, but it doesn't say that we can grant these rights.
Ben, what is your feeling on the Trulias and the Zillows? Like, do you think that this is something where the industry, we just kind of were asleep behind the wheel, and these guys have now positioned themselves, and there's no getting rid of them? Or, like, what is your, like, just how do you feel about those companies?
Well, I think it's, you know, if you read the Bill of Rights, it will tell you pretty clearly. I think there's a number of things that they are doing that is questionable, and is certainly, well, what is happening is they are allowing realtors to circumvent their own Bill of Rights. And as far as you know, I'm not a big fan of them, I must admit, but you know, that's not for me to say, and I mean, it's not for me to
Here, okay, so here's where like I can definitely understand the angst about these companies, right? Like, a lot of brokers or agents feel like these guys are taking the hard work that I've gone after. So I'm the one that went out there and got the listing, and now they're taking the listing from me, and they're turning it around, and they're packaging it up in a way that people end up there, right? Like, you go to Google now and you find the Zillows or the Trulias, and they've got, you know, they got 40 million unique visitors a month between the two of them. And it is, the restrictions that we place on ourselves as an industry, have those in some way helped to allow these companies to flourish? Because, like, what they do, they take the information and they create a whole story around a house, even when it's not for sale, right? Because after that home gets sold, people can still go in there and see what was going on, or before the house ever goes on the market, right? They can go on there and get a Zestimate or see from the county records, you know, what's going on at that location. Has the industry kind of handcuffed itself in some ways in not allowing that information to be out there?
There was a recent poll that showed that I think 81% of the respondents felt like that the realtor brand has been diminished by the recent relaxing of the rules that Realtor.com has to follow. They have an operating agreement that was modified here, I think, last month.
Yep.
So
that's now going to allow home builders to have their inventory on Realtor.com. That's part of that agreement, right?
Right, and people that don't have to be licensed realtors or don't have to be realtors to put their information on Realtor.com.
Right. And
so, you know, I guess basically to summarize my position or my thoughts on it is that we've created a situation that allows NAR has allowed a situation to occur where its membership can circumvent its Bill of Rights just as if those Bill of Rights didn't exist, and it puts us in a very weak competitive position as far as those websites are concerned, because our websites now, our BOW and IDX websites, cannot do the things that Zillow does, and essentially with all of their advertising and marketing dollars, they are capturing the traffic before it gets to us, because if you do a search, a Google search, they're going to be first in line, and our websites are going to be second in line, or fifth page, or whatever it might be. So again, at the risk of rambling, that's
it's such a, to me, it's just such a fascinating discussion, right? Because I mean, all of us have sat here, at least if you've been in the industry for the last 10 years, like we literally sat here and watched this thing kind of grow out of nowhere. It's just a fascinating. Our industry is very interesting. Let's just say that. All right, give me some sage advice, Ben. So you're 21-year-old Ben getting into the business. You know all the things you know now as 45-year-old Ben, or however old you are. What advice would you give yourself looking back?
Well, you know, everyone is different, and you know, for me, I mean, and not everybody is like me, but I'm a passionate person. Whenever I get an idea, I really get excited about it, and it almost consumes me, and so it drives me very intensely, and so, as say, if you're not like me, then it doesn't really work. But I think perseverance, whether you're passionate or not, is certainly a necessity. You cannot be successful if you don't persevere. And the other thing is to specialize. We're all good at something. I mean, we might be a Vietnamese immigrant or something, but I've seen a lot of ladies that came over here as refugees on a boat that could barely speak English, and 5 years later they're driving Mercedes. Okay, they've specialized in their particular ethnic market. They're, you know, whether you use your contacts and to develop your specialty, and of course your experience. So I
think that's a great piece of advice. Like the specialization in this industry, so many people feel like they're missing business if they're not available to everybody. Don't you see that just a lot in this industry, where I just feel like, oh man, if I'm just available to everybody, then that's going to be a better way to operate my business than just being specialized in one particular niche.
You can't be better than, I mean, there's very few of us that are better than everybody else in everything. So
right.
If you want to excel, you have to specialize in something. In that way, you can be better than most of the other people that you're competing with. So that's specialization. I mean, that's why we have doctors that are heart surgeons and brain surgeons and GPs and so forth. So I think if you stop and think, that's not that unique a thought, but it is very, very important to specialize, and that's what we've done.
Man, I appreciate you coming on here. You know, we rambled a little bit longer than I was expecting, so we don't have a ton of time for questions. If anybody's got a question, there's been some that have been coming through. I've been maybe peppering them in a little bit. If you guys still have questions for Ben, we showed earlier, you could reach out to him on Twitter, but if you're interested in the system that we talked about today and potentially looking at bringing what Ben does with builders to your market, as you close down the GoToWebinar control panel today, there's going to be a little deal that pops up that asks you 2 questions. One of them was this a good use of your time, I think, and the second one is, are you interested in information about Ben's system? If you put yes on there, I'm going to give him the names and email addresses of all the folks that said they might be interested in talking with Ben about the system that you use to work with builders in your market. And Ben, I'm really impressed, man. You know, what you've been able to accomplish in the industry is pretty spectacular, and congratulations to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience, and would be happy to discuss it with anyone that has an interest. I appreciate the time, everyone's time.
Awesome. Hey, you guys, man, I appreciate you joining me here early in the week at ActiveRain University. Big special thanks to Ben Caballero. This guy, if he's not super busy, I don't know who is, so I appreciate him taking an hour out of his day to join us here. On behalf of all the folks behind the scenes, I'm Bob Stewart. Thanks again, Ben. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your week, and maybe we'll see you again real soon at ActiveRain University. Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.